It's not every day a presidential candidate goes battleship, and Donald Trump definitely understands the power of big symbolic media events, but he surprised everyone tonight by failing to meet this moment. Just last hour, Donald Trump stepped aboard the USS Iowa to speak to a veterans group and turned in one of the shortest, most free associating random addresses of his entire weird campaign. Here is the closest he came to foreign policy.
I just want to say that we're going to come out with some plans in a very short time. We're going to be building up our military. We're going to make our military so big and so strong and so great. And it will be so powerful that I don't think we're ever going to have to use it. Nobody's going to mess with us. I learned a lot about the Iowa. By the way, Iowa is a great place for a lot of reasons. You know? We have been treated so well in the state of Iowa. It's been incredible. Number one on the polls, and we love those people. They're great. So this is a great ship. Hawkeye, he goes. This is a great ship, and that's a great state. We're going to rebuild the military. We're going to make it so strong. Right now, and you know it, we have illegal immigrants that are treated better by far than our veterans. That's not going to happen anymore.
Trump then told the people who gathered there in California about the people who gathered for him last night in Texas.
Last night in Dallas, at the American Airlines Center, 20,000 people, the basketball arena of the Mavericks. 20,000 people showed up, and I want to tell you, it was a love fest.
Donald Trump praised Rush Limbaugh. He criticized his Republican rivals for not having read his book, The Art of the Deal. And then 12 minutes later, he was out of there. Joining me now is David Corn, Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones and MSNBC analyst. Steve Clemons, Washington Editor-at-Large for The Atlantic, also a contributor here. And James Richardson, Republican strategist and managing director at the global law firm Denton's. David Corn, what just happened?
He changed his mind. Still, it was huge. It was incredible. It was beautiful. I mean, did anyone really expect Donald Trump to come out and give a 27-point plan on how to have a more robust military?
How about
what he's going to do about the
point or two, though,
the F-27 and the F-14?
How about a point or two?
Well, maybe one, but listen, he gave us his plan. He said when there's President Trump, there won't be a trade deficit anymore with China. What else do you want, Ari?
I guess.
I mean, come on, what else do you want? Now, Steve Clemons is going to tell you that we need foreign policy papers, but this is really just about, you know, and bless Steve Clemons. He's a beautiful person. He's incredible. He's huge. But really, this is just about playing to the crowd again and again and again. Once he gets into details, he's not the Donald Trump that's selling Donald Trump incredibly well
David,
to the Republican electorate.
I got bad news for Steve Clemons. You and James are here for the politics. We asked Steve to come on for the foreign policy and just witness a policy-free speech. I also want to play, as promised, this is breaking now this evening, Joe Biden speaking very directly and emphatically tonight about the message, that what he calls the sick message Donald Trump has been putting out. Take a listen to Joe Biden tonight.
I don't want anybody to be down right now about what's going on in the Republican Party. I mean this sincerely now. This is not, no, I'm being deadly earnest about this. I want you to remember, notwithstanding the fact that there's one guy absolutely denigrating an entire group of people, appealing to the baser side of human nature, working on this notion of xenophobia in a way that hasn't occurred in a long time, since the Know Nothing Party back at the end of the 19th century.
Steve Clemons, the vice president drawing a direct line from Donald Trump's sort of nativism and anti-immigrant rhetoric today all the way back. What do you think of those new comments from Joe Biden?
I think the clarity of Joe Biden on this is going to be searing and very important. I think that, you know, what we're talking about when you look not only at Donald Trump, but Ben Carson, and I know we're not talking about him today, but the fact that half of GOP voters support these two men who are not talking in any serious way about the nuts and bolts of foreign policy. Forget the papers that David is talking about, but just any semblance of a strategic sense of understanding the priorities the nation needs to put forward. Neither one of them are doing this, and I think that the nativism, the jingoism, this kind of very base, pugnacious nationalism that's so dark has been brewing in this country for a long time. I mean, I remember Jesse Helms. You've had John Bolton have, quick spikes in some of this. So we've seen it before, but not consolidated in such a large footprint using modern methods of communication and the internet and the networking that's bringing all of this together. And he's seducing that party, and I think it's very dangerous.
James, as a Republican, what did you think of the vice president confronting a lot of what Trump's saying there? And are you comfortable with the sort of thin foreign policy vision that Trump laid out tonight on that battleship?
Absolutely not. Mr. Trump clearly believes that there's mileage in the issue of immigration, which is why he spent, 30 seconds in what he billed as a major foreign policy address on foreign policy, and everything else really back to immigration. But my own view is that I don't really believe that at the end of the day, America wants as president a man who's going to need to consult Wikipedia in national security briefings. This is a guy who has absolutely no fluency in the issue of national security or, frankly, any transcendent challenge ahead for the next president. If you look back, in the last 2 weeks, he was twice asked about the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and twice he whiffed. One time so spectacularly bad that he actually mistook the Quds Force, which is effectively a terror organization incubator for the Kurds, which, as you know, Ari, is an ethnic group. So one has to wonder if in Mr. Trump's see and say foreign policy, if we're going to be arming the Quds and bombing the Kurds, because frankly, he has no idea what he's talking about. Chuck Todd asked him last month, who he consults for military policy, and his actual answer was the shows. That's terrifying that someone like me could influence the president's foreign policy view just because he watches the shows.
Well, and to that point, David, what Trump was clearly giving away is that he not only exists in a world where television entertainment and The Apprentice is his reality, obviously, but that he thinks that's sufficient. He has a lot of money. He's now ahead in the polls. If he had any intellectual or policy curiosity, David, he could gather experts to consult with. He just doesn't seem to want to. Is that going to come up Wednesday night at this big debate?
I mean, I'll take a little credit here, because after he did that sit-down with our colleague Chuck Todd, I called up Jack Jacobs, who is also a consultant here at MSNBC, who Donald Trump had named as one of his go-to guys on national security. And Colonel Jacobs told me that he's never once spoken to Donald Trump about national security, foreign policy matters. Now imagine if Hillary Clinton or even Jeb Bush said something like that and got called out that way. But let me just flip the script here for 1 second. The problem, for the Republicans at least, is not so much Donald Trump. It's the fact that with all these deficits that we've talked about, others have talked about, still 30–40% of Republicans go for him. They don't want the policy. They don't want the details. They don't want the intellectual depth or rigor. They want someone who is a celebrity venting and angry, and that's good enough for them. And if you throw in the Ben Carson vote, which is a little bit different, you get over half of the Republican Party. That shows me Trump is not going to go away, and just calling him out on details is not going to be an effective strategy for the Republican establishment.
So, Steve, connect the dot from there to these Republicans on that main debate stage tomorrow night, because it would seem after this address, which we know the other Republican campaigns were watching, Donald Trump's basically daring everyone. He's saying he feels no pressure, even in a military setting with an emphasis on veterans, to offer anything.
So what Donald Trump is doing, and I think we all need to take it seriously, because it is resonating for many, many Americans, is he's presenting a picture of a gravityless environment in which America has no boundaries, no limits, can continuously work its way through boxes, is all-powerful. You know, it's interesting the comment that he did make tonight about a military so big that we wouldn't need to use it. That's a different message from the neoconservatives who want a big military and want to use it. You know, there are these moments where he's hearkening back to a time when the world looked at the United States and Americans felt we were, king of the hill. And I think that what most of the rest of the candidates in both parties are these switches turned on. But you have a lot of Americans in the kind of economic mess in this country, the great divide in wealth, the sense that whether they blame George W. Bush or they blame Barack Obama, they sense that we have economic limits, they have military limits. So even though he's coming out with a detail-less position on this stuff, he's reaching deep into the souls of these people because they want what America used to be back, and he's not being compelled by everyone. So as long as he